Hi. I'm so excited to be here right now and be talking with my friend, and I don't want to call you a colleague, my friend and fellow traveler, Lady PheØnix. We met I think I first became aware of your work in 2018 when you curated this phenomenal AR exhibition, and were very much on my radar, and then kind of got to know you through the pandemic, through Clubhouse, where you were just an extraordinary leader and voice of calm and and sort of wisdom throughout a lot of pretty crazy conversations.
Yeah.
And have really enjoyed getting to know you in person more recently. And I've had the enormous fortune, and as I hope each of you will have, if you go to the Immersive Arcade, of experiencing Lady PheØnix's project, Breonna's Garden. It's really incredibly powerful, and I'm really excited to talk about it and many other things today.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for that warm welcome. It's crazy to think that I was saying to you backstage that 2018 is sort of, it's still right here, it feels like, and then in some instances it feels like it was lifetimes ago. But yeah, it's been a pretty, I think, wild but also fortunate ride. Like, I've met really great people, like the AR artist Sutu, AR VR artist, legendary Sutu. He was my buddy and co-creator on this. Buddy in that there were some ideas that I had around how the project could come to life, either in AR and VR, and it was really through his mentorship and his friendship and him, being a creative partner on the project that the project came through. So when you speak about like the crazy days of Clubhouse and, putting wisdom above hype when it comes to NFTs or virtual projects, that was the time that Sutu and I were really sort of in the trenches figuring out the most compassionate and the most relevant way to bring a project like this forward.
Well, so that's a perfect sort of segue to what I really want to get into. First of all, the project itself, but I thought we would sort of kick it off with a quote that we both love from Jean Youngblood, who said, "Radicals don't predict, they build." Mm-hmm. And I kind of think of that as a really great sort of overarching theme for our conversation and for a lot of your vision and how you've led in this space. But when it comes to Breonna's Garden, this was really lovingly and intentionally ushered into the world in collaboration with her family. And I wanted to just talk about, obviously expand on your relationship with Sutu and the team that came together around this, but also maybe get into what kinds of creative and ethical considerations were at play, especially around a subject of this magnitude and importance and sensitivity. And I also wondered if you could talk a little bit about, after that, I'm just throwing a lot at you right now.
Yeah, let's go.
The impact of the project and also where it's headed, because it's really taken on a huge life of its own. So maybe we could just start with how it came to be, how you cultivated these relationships, and what the sort of overarching goals for the project were, and then go on from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you open with this quote, because when I think of being a radical, I think more of someone who's radically honest or who chooses radical love over fear. And I think at the time that the project came about, first as a little seedling, phoned up Sutu, "Hey buddy, I have an idea. You might think it's crazy, but," and he's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. What is it?"
Yeah, that's so him, yeah.
And so, it really came about as a gift or an offering to Janaya, whom you've seen in the yellow dress or the gold dress here. She was expressing and grieving and talking about her sister on social media, on Instagram, and she was receiving death threats. And so I just thought to myself, well, this is crazy. A person who's very publicly lost her sister, gone from, just, "Hey, I'll see you later," or, "Yeah, like, I'll have the chicken fettuccine, when I get home. Thanks for cooking dinner, sis," to, her home was a crime scene, and now she's thrusted into the limelight as someone who needs to be discussing her slain sister. Like, it's, especially at a time of COVID and just overall global unease. Yeah, not just unrest, but it was an uneasy time, right? The skin was quite itchy, like nothing seemed to fit well. There was a lot of uncertainty. And in my capacity as a creative person, as a creative entrepreneur, as an artist, I thought, well, I'm not going to join the protest. Like, I can't go to Kentucky. I'm just also someone who's not going to be on the streets like that because of, police just opening fire on an audience or someone driving their car into a crowd. It's like people are very uneasy and imbalanced right now. I mean, the safest place I can be is at home, but in the world through the internet. And so a project of this nature being an augmented reality, I can share space and be with anybody at any time, or the project can, right? And so that's something really intentional we wanted to bring about. We wanted it to be easy to use. We wanted anybody to be able to interact with it and really sit with it personally, right? Augmented reality is great because it allows an experience to be personal.
Yeah.
And yeah, after the death threats, I took on my own protest, and this offering was my protest. But now, as we've been in Tribeca, South by Southwest, with the Perez Museum at Art Basel, with Filmgate, like, we've had a lot of great opportunity to share the project. I think one, kind of one consideration, speaking of being personal, is that when I initially conceptualized the project, I wanted it to be in VR so that she could shut the world out. With AR, she sort of still has to share the world.
Yeah,
share her world.
And I think what's beautiful about that too is that in AR, to personalize it for people to kind of contextualize the story in their own space.
Exactly.
And to kind of create a different relationship to
what happened.
To what happened,
Yeah.
and everything that's a part of the VR experience.
Yeah, and also to invite people into the future, right? So oftentimes there's a conversation about who's left behind and who's not at the table and all of these things. So the project is also part tech equity and will continue to be so as we develop.
And to that end, one of the things I really loved about the VR experience was hearing other voices included in the experience, and that you could go over to, like, I just remember vividly at South by Southwest going over to this one rock and listening to the voices, and I think that was also a really innovative and beautiful and inclusive thing that you did, to also expand the story and to make it even more broadly accessible, but also more complex than I think even people realize, and to really underscore her impact.
100%.
Because it was, as you described it to me, it was really a project of celebrating her life versus some kind of, exploitation of the pain.
Right, 100%. So the project really seeks to align Breonna with her purpose. Her purpose is healing. Her purpose is love. A lot of people may not be aware, but she was awarded her nursing degree posthumously. So she is a nurse, so to speak. And my overall arching goal, besides creating a safe space online for people to grieve, for her family to grieve, for Janiyah to grieve, to be with the truth of who Breonna is and was to them. Because in the media, it can get a little tricky. And after hearing it, incessantly, ad nauseum, maybe there's a part of us or her or whomever who might question, like, wait, do I have this right? Am I remembering her correctly? And no one really should have the authority to do that. And so I wanted to also amend the record, the history, the timeline, and allow those who loved Breonna and cared for her and held her, when she was sick, who celebrated with her, those who were really in practice of love with her. I wanted them to have the record of who she is, not CNN, not NBC, not the Times, but her family, those who loved her.
I think the other beautiful way you achieved that, and really cutting it off from the fire hose of mediated information, is inviting us into the intimate space of home.
Yep.
And putting us inside her home.
Yeah.
That felt like, a much more sort of visceral type of engagement for the viewer to experience something that's just completely other than, what's being served up.
Well, yeah, a lot of people won't have the opportunity to step into the home. And so the home is a metaphor for the heart, right? Yeah. They're stepping into the heart of her family. It's her mother's home, her family home. And there's a room in their home that's the Breonna room. And it's all of her awards, her journal, baby photos, accolades, even her house keys from the apartment where she passed. was in that room, and it's also in the experience. You have to kind of zoom in and walk up to things to see it. But yeah, it was important to, people will say, oh, you humanized her. But it's like, nah, that's not good enough. She was already human. If you forgot that, that's on you, right? It was more or less two things. One, helping Breonna achieve her goal of healing and being in love and celebration with people. I think that the way people die, especially with COVID, I was thinking that the way people die now means more to us than we ever really knew, because we can't always be with those people in the way that we want to celebrate their homegoing. Those in 2020, 2021 who were just gunned down mercilessly, I think those folks, for me, I wanted to ultimately also create a place for them, for their memories, their dreams to still happen. Like if we changed our relationship to death and dying and made it our responsibility to help the person who passed, their loved one who went on, to still achieve their goal posthumously, our world would be so different.
Well, and that's another sort of, this ties in directly to your kind of vision for this what you call mindfulness of the metaverse. And when you were speaking earlier about, not wanting to be in the center of putting yourself at enormous risk in, say, like a protest, which is great for some people, not for others. Right. But to actually operate and protest, from a different space.
Through my gifts.
Through your, exactly. Yeah. And in this, through, technology, which is, as we know, not neutral, but is a tool that can be deployed for communication and connection. Can you talk a little bit about, and as you imagine other projects to honor people whose lives were ended all too soon, and beyond that as well, can you talk about the mindfulness of the metaverse? And forgive me, everyone, like you may all have a concept of the metaverse, or you might not know what we mean when we talk about metaverse, but I love your definition of metaverse, so I wonder if you could start off talking about what that is, because it seems completely connected to what you were just talking about, and how, again, to sort of reject, in the building sense, to reject what's been perhaps built or offered, and instead sort of take those tools and build new futures and new conversations and new worlds, as you say.
And new neural pathways.
And new neural pathways, exactly.
Yeah, I think for me, what 2020 really illuminated is that we all have something to give, and we're all a part of building the new world. One of our upgrades after the 2020 rainbow entered all of our lives was to be in a place where our gifts would be received. Like the portal is so wide open for us to share our gifts, whatever that thing is that you do, or you're excited about, or you're passionate about, or you just have this curiosity that you can't let go of. There's something that you're meant to offer. I feel like artists and creative people, or those who tap into their creativity, are in the most prime time of their lives. It's like you have your crayon, your marker, your thing you do, the thing you shape, you mold, the thing you sound, the thing you vision, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, like this is your time. It's your time to put your mark, your color, your thumbprint, your shaping, your sound, whatever that thing is, it's time to add your voice. And I think like for me, like with this, you were saying earlier, like it's through technology, but we are technology. I'm technology. Your heart beating involuntarily is a type of technology. I think this is a time for looking at all the different types of technologies that we have, including wisdom as a technology. I think we need that to build this world more than ever. It's not just the software and hardware at all. That's the least. Yeah. That's the least. I think it's that special something, right, that comes from us, that is the technology that will enact on the software and hardware in such a way that it will serve us in this metaverse, so that the new world that we build, whether it's a digital world or IRL, it's built with a different intention. Yeah. Infused into it, a different breath. Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah. And for me, in creating, I think that I was saying to you very respectfully that in this new world that we're building, in this next history and future, we don't need to begin as apes. We don't need to begin as apes and monkeys. We can actually begin as something else, something more informed, something a bit more intelligent. The narratives that we construct and build and string together can be more intelligent. People are reserving intelligence again for machines through artificial intelligence. There's another type of intelligence that exists that can be infused into the metaverse in such a way that what we build we're proud of, and we don't have to look back in shame and horror the way we look back now on what we've built.
And I think that's so gorgeously put. And I think, when you talk about mindfulness and healing and using our intention toward these ends, that's obviously what happened with this project. But in everything that we collectively start to build together, it does require a certain critical eye to look at, as we were discussing, the ways in which it hasn't worked, the ways in which a lot of the kind of inequities have been reproduced in virtual space or in metaversal space or whatever you want to call it, Web3, which is, what so many people are talking about right now, and what you've been a leader in that space for so long. What is that? How do we sort of imagine that practically speaking? Because one of the things I love about this idea of artists bringing their gifts. There's a wonderful quote from a book by Annie Dillard, and she's talking to a young writer in the world, and she says, "You were set here to," I'm going to mangle it, but you were set here to put voice to your astonishment. Mm-hmm. And I think that this idea of what astonishes you? What astonishes you for good, for bad, for any reason? What do you find astonishing? Because what you find astonishing is the thing that you need to put out in the world. And so how can we harness our astonishment and bring it into active building and active, how do we, as you put it, work with, you said it so beautifully, it was, building with purpose versus pain. Yeah. How does that, because it's a delicate line sometimes, because we're in such a heavy moment. Mm-hmm. And I would say the destabilization of 2020 has, at least I experience it even more so now. I feel that it's actually, and yet I also see this sort of triumphant pushback and among artists and among leaders like you. So how would you kind of, I would
tell them to remember nature. The butterfly, the silkworm/butterfly, butterfly is going through something similar that we are going through now, a type of metamorphosis. Most of us think our bones are broken and that we've been forgotten about, and so we live in pain with broken bones, not knowing that healing is quite possible for us. And also sometimes your bones have to break so you can get into your new form, because those bones are dry and don't serve you anymore, right? So I think collectively, specifically with the artists, we're changing form. And because we have to, like the butterfly literally has to become a liquid, or the silkworm has to become liquid to be built back up into this butterfly, so to speak, right? And so, we are changing form, but we're not dying to just be forgotten about. We are changing form, and it's painful because things you've grown to love, like your bones, maybe you don't need them anymore. Your legs, you don't need anymore. You're gonna fly. So I think that artists and people who want to make change and who want to see things differently, it's like a platitude to say it, but it's always that first step. We're the ones, we're so brilliant and intelligent and have so much to offer, but we're the most, as artists and creatives, we're the most fearful of our own ability to become a butterfly, because we're stuck in the fact that it's painful. And I think that something for me, when I started this project, I thought that her sister would think I was totally nuts. Like, I want to bring your sister into the metaverse so she can live out her dream as a nurse and hold space for people for their healing and transformation. And we want to premiere at Tribeca. What do you think?
But she was game, right?
After the second conversation,
okay.
Yes. Because at first it's just like, no, you're kidding. Like, this sounds really impossible and actually crazy. And what is VR? What is AR? What are these things? But I would say to get into that form, realize essentially that it's not pain. because I was kind of stuck here, like looking crazy, to actually, what if this works and it brings her the healing and kind of not closure, but it's a balm on the womb within her. And it was a balm on the wound within her, and it had the impact I was hoping it would have. But I was like terrified and had a little bit of negative self-talk about it. And then I finally was like, oh, the butterfly, okay.
And we have to end, but I want to say that was such a great way to end, because we think of the butterfly effect, you know, the idea that, you know, one butterfly flapping its, I don't know, the
flapping
wings.
its wings has effect on.
And we can't always see that effect, but it can expand exponentially. And I think that's what's already happening with this project. So.
And with the healing effects, and to your point to close, it's not just about, you know, the memories of Breonna. It's everyone's memories who's decided to share with the project. The memory is planted as a flower in the garden, and then grows up, and you can hear it. And so, I think that, you know, my prediction for the future, especially with the metaverse being so pervasive, is that everyone will have a garden. That's the goal. Everyone will have a garden. And there will be a safe place for you to plant your memories of your loved one and yourself, and a way for people to remember you with honor and dignity, something that's tangible for your family. We're moving into digital legacies. And so those legacies can be energized and can be already arranged for love and well-being, for record of who you are and who you were and how you lived your life, and also to, again, so that people can help you achieve your goal. In doing that, people have completion and fulfillment, and it literally changes the frequency of our world. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.